Hey there, welcome back to the shop. My name is Brian and this is Dowelmax 101. And this is going to be a series of videos dedicated to the use of the Dowelmax. So if you have this tool, or you're thinking about buying this tool, or you already have it and you're new with it and you're not sure how to use it, these are going to be the set of videos for you. So today we're going to start with the basics, and we're going to be doing a basic butt joint. We're going to be doing a basic miter as like in a picture frame, and then we're going to be joining two boards as if we're doing a tabletop, and then we're going to be doing a T-joint. Jim Lindsay, who is the inventor of the Dowelmax, when he created the Dowelmax, he created a system with it too. It's called the checkmark system. And you're going to find these check marks on your actual jig. You're going to have one here on the side block on both sides. Now this jig, you can go from one side to the other. It's machined so well that you're not going to have any discrepancy from one end to the other. They're always going to line up the same. And you're going to find your second check mark is going to be here on the inside. These check marks are all for face reference of the jig to the project piece, so we're always going to the same side of the wood. So let's get started. So the dowels that we're using for this project are 3/8, and the reason why I like using these expandable dowels is when they manufacture these, they are actually manufactured just a little bit bigger than 3/8, and then they compress them down to just about 3/8, a little bit under. All right. So when you put them into your project, you add glue to them, put it together, clamp it up. These are actually going to swell up to that size a little bit beyond the 3/8. It's going to lock those boards together. So it's going to be very strong. And if you go to Dowelmax's website, you can actually see the testing that Jim has done that shows that these dowels are actually stronger than mortise and tenon. So now the dowels we're using for this project are 1.5 inches long. And we can use 2-inch dowels, whatever size we can get our hands on. Now the question you get a lot is, well, how do I know how to adjust the drill bit for the depth to go into the workpiece, equal on both sides? Well, you can do it the old-fashioned way, like I did back when I first started using this jig over 20 years ago. Is I would loosen the step collar up, I'd slide it through, and I'd take my ruler, I'd measure 3/4 of an inch, lock it down. Actually, a little more than 3/4 of an inch, lock it down, and then your project, you're good enough for your project. Now, Dowelmax actually has a jig for the drill bit. If you look here, it has increments from 5/8, 3/4, 7/8, an inch for different size dowels. You actually bring it down to the size you want. Now, we want this to be 3/4 because we're 1.5 inches on the dowel. So we go a little bit past the 3/4, loosen the collar up, you slide this in until it touches, lock it down, drill bit set. A little bit easier. Something you can think about picking up if you do have this jig, if you don't have that part already. So we're going to start off with the simple butt joint. As if we're joining two pieces of wood like this. And what we want to do is implement the check mark system. So wherever we're going to be lining up the jig, we want a check mark. So on the face here, we're going to put a check mark at the top here, and a check mark at the top here. Then we're going to come around to the face grain, put a check mark here, check mark here. Now where the dowels are going, we're going to want to put X's. So we're going to have dowels this way. So we're going to mark a couple X's here. We know the dowels are going to be going in here, so we're going to put some X's here. This is where we know what the face is on all pieces, so when it all comes together good. We're going to put our first piece in the vise here. We'll lock it down. All right, so now we're going to take our jig and we're going to reference it to the wood. Now we got a check mark here and a check mark here. And we have a check mark on the front face and a check mark here. So we're going to lay the jig this way. And then we're going to line up the block to the edge of the workpiece. Now this can get a little funky at times. So here's a pro tip. Your kit's going to come with an indexing pin for running the jig further down the wood. Stick that in your first hole, run it up to the wood, and clamp your jig down. Now you're all set to go. So now we're going to drill our holes. So now we're going to put our next workpiece in, and we're going to do the side here. So let's clamp it in. Again, check marks here, check marks here. Check marks on the front face, check marks here. We're going to throw it up. We're going to take our indexing pin, we're going to throw it in, bring it down to the workpiece. Lock the workpiece up, take the pin out, and drill off 4 holes. Okay, so if we did our job properly, this should all line up good. Let's stick our dowels in. Obviously no glue on these right now. These are only test pieces. We're going to put it together, and you can see perfectly flat. Edges are perfectly made together. So next piece we're going to do is T-joint, which is joining the work pieces like this. Now this work piece here already has the holes drilled, so we're not going to do it on this board. We're going to keep this the way it is. That's how good the jig is. You can take this piece to go wherever you want on the project. So we'll leave that alone. But what we did do is find center on here, and we found just about center on here. We're going to put those 2 lines together here like this. And now my check mark's already on this piece here, so I'm going to add a check mark to here. Check mark's already here. I'm going to put a check mark here, and I'm going to take the pencil and I'm going to draw a line right there upside the. So I drew a line upside right here, and that's going to be where I'm going to put the jig. So we're going to take our workpiece. I'm going to stick it in here. Now we got my check mark here, and my check mark here, and my check mark here. So check mark to check mark. And now we're going to bring the block up to that line, right on that line. I'm going to lock it down. So here we have up to the line, check mark to check mark. And we're going to drill our holes, 4 holes here. Now we're capable of drilling 5, but the workpiece is only 3 inches wide, so we can only do 4. Okay, now we're going to clear any chips that might be in there. We're going to add some dowels. And we got a check mark to check mark. Put that together. And there we go. So we're going to join 2 boards together as if we were joining, let's say, a tabletop. Right? So we're going to lay them out the way we want the grain to look. What's going to look best for the tabletop. And again, we're going to start from one side. We're going to implement the check mark system. So we're going to put a check mark where these 2 surfaces meet. And on the end of it, we're going to put check mark and check mark. What this is going to do for our tabletop, one, it's going to keep the boards in nice alignment, so you're not going to get movement once you clamp them up. So the boards ain't going to move up or down on you. So they're going to stay nice and flat. And it's going to make the joint stronger. So not only you have the glue on the side grain here, which is going to be really strong, but you're going to also have the dowels in there, which is going to keep it stronger. But now keep in mind, if you're going to be trimming this tabletop down or doing an under bevel, you got to make sure that you push the first dowels and the last dowel far enough in where you're not going to end up cutting them and exposing them. And we're going to be using another piece from the kit that you get with your Dowelmax, which is going to be a spacer bar. So we're going to drill our first hole, we're going to space it, drill our second, space it if we have to, or this is small enough, so we'll probably end up spacing it, and then maybe using the pin to get the last hole in. All right, so let's say we're going to do 3 dowels. That should be enough to get the job done here. So we got a check mark and a check mark, and our check mark on a faceplate. So it's going to go in that way. We're going to use our pin, index and pin, to give us our start. We're going to lock the jig down. Pull it and drill it. All right. So now we have our first hole. We're going to take our space bar. Now I like to put a piece of tape on it so I know what direction that I am going, so that I know the tape's always going to be going to my left. Put that space bar in. We're going to put our jig on. Is that check mark? Check mark on the faceplate. Roll the jig over here. Lock it down. And we could choose any hole we want. Means that we're going to be using 3 dowels. We're going to go for the first hole. So we'll drill that. So now we have our second hole. Now we could always have a separate, we can always adjust this for the last hole. Or if we have 2 bars, which I do, you can have 2 separate bars. Obviously, if we go here, are we going to have enough to put the jig on? Let's find out. And I think we do. We'll lock that down. And we'll drill our last hole. So we got our 3 holes. Let's do the other side. So we have our check mark, check mark, check mark, check mark. Let's throw it on, put in our pin, bring it back, lock it up, our pin, drill a hole. Now when the board's long enough, all you're going to do is just slide this down like this. Again, my blue tape's going to go to the outside. Put a spacing bar in, lock it down, and again we're drilling the first hole. Okay, one more hole, slide this in, put a jig on, lock it down, drill the hole. All right, so now we have our pretend tabletop. We're going to make sure our check marks are facing each other. Check mark, check mark. Make sure there's no waste in there. We're going to throw in a couple dowels. We would add our glue. And there we go. Nice and smooth. Everything's nice and flush up top. This is going to be our last joint for this video. We're going to do a miter as if we were doing, let's say, a picture frame. Now later on in the series, I will show you how to do a miter as if you're doing a box. It's totally different. It's a different adapter for the jig. So now, we're going to put our pieces together, and we're going to use the checkmark system on this too. But, because it's a miter, we're going to start from the inside and work our way to the outside. So our check marks are going to go here on the bottom, on faces, and on the bottom sides. Now, we know our dowels are 1.5 inches, so how far can we take those dowels across? So on this project, it's going to be right about here. Yeah, you could put more dowels to the end, but you would have to shorten your dowels and adjust your drill bit depth so that you don't expose them on the end. So this is about as far as we can go. So we probably put 4 dowels at least. Let's give it a shot. See what comes together. We're going to put our piece in the vise to make it easier. We have our check mark and our check mark. So a check mark on the faceplate and check mark on the end here. Now, every once in a while when you're using the jig, just go around and make sure the knobs are staying tight. Sometimes these will creep up. They'll creep loose a little bit. Not that on the back it matters. It's on the front that matters because the back, so even if it's loose, it's always going to pull forwards. But always make sure every once in a while I go through it. Make sure the knobs stay tight. And we're going to take our check mark here to the end. And we're going to lock it down. There's no way of implementing the pin trick on this one. You just got to go by feel and by your eyeball. All right, let's drill our holes. We're going to go for 4 holes. Okay. So like I said, we got off 4. If this was a joint that was structurally important, you could go further. I could have went 5 because the line's there, but 4 is good enough for this demonstration. But if you need to go to the end, again, you'd have to shorten the dowels and shorten your depth of drill. But you could definitely take that all the way to the end or close to it. All right, I'm gonna put our next piece in here. So now, our check mark's on this side, and the check mark's still back here, so we're gonna have to rotate the jig this way. And like I said, from here to the end of the block, from here to the block, it's exactly the same. The machining on this jig is incredible. But I've been using this jig, God, it's almost scary to say, since 2002. And I've been using it on a lot of projects, and are dowels good enough? Yeah, dowels are good enough. Mortise and tenons are great, dominoes are great, dowels are great. This is more cost efficient than, let's say, a domino machine. Even if you added all the adapters and all the different sizes to this jig, it'd still be half the price of a domino. And not just the machine, not the stuff you need to use the domino. And you know, in the end, does it really matter if it's a mortise and tenon or this and piece of furniture? No, because you know what? They can't see inside the piece of furniture. I've had multiple pieces take blue ribbons at different woodworking shows and all dowels on the inside. So I didn't spend hours doing mortise and tenon work just so I know that it's there. It doesn't matter. When it comes down to it, it's the finished piece that matters. Okay, let's drill these 4 holes. Now you want to make sure you have good sharp drill bits. I happen to be drilling into poplar, which is like a medium hardwood, so it's not too terrible. But if I was going into, even with a sharp drill bit into like hard maple, the drill goes a little slower. So don't be shocked if that happens to you. And definitely, if you decide to go with this jig, when you're on this site, buy multiple drill bits. This way you have them, so you're not constantly swapping sizes and swapping the collars once you have them set this set. And when it comes to the video where we're doing face grain and end grain, you're going to see why having 2 drill bits is very important. Okay, so here we go. We have our 2 pieces. Here's our check marks and our lines there. Let's get 4 dowels. And we're going to put it together. And there we go. So our ends are good. Everything's flush. Again, we'd still have to clamp it, but everything's smooth, everything's good. There won't be a lot of sanding on this joint once it's dry because it's pretty flush. And of course, it's going to come together better once you get your clamp on there. Now, another little tip, these dowels, even in plastic bags, will absorb moisture over time, and they will swell back to their original size, and you're going to go use them and be like, damn it, they won't fit in the freaking holes no more. So I do keep don't take them into your house. Get a second-hand toaster oven, and I'll throw them in there before I start a job, and I'll warm them up and get that moisture out of them so they fit smoothly into the holes, so there's no issues. That's another tip. It's the basic of the Dowelmax. They're basically all butt joints if you think about it, whether it's a T-joint or up in the end here like a joint in a cabinet panel, or if you're doing a tabletop, or even doing the miter joint. They're still just butt joints, and those dowels are gonna keep those joints together. I've had pieces, like I said, over 20 years, nothing's come apart. So I don't want to hear anyone say, dowels are no good, dowels are weak, dowels are only for alignment. That's a bunch of bull. And I'm proof positive of it. I don't want to call myself an expert on this tool, but I've been using it long enough to say, yeah, I think I'm pretty good with it. So if this is your first time seeing this jig in use and you're thinking about purchasing one, or maybe purchasing one, there's an affiliate link down below in the comment section. Just click on that, go to their site, and check them out. And I can guarantee you pick this up, you're going to be happy with it. All right, well, that's going to wrap up this video. The next one to come is probably going to be on doing the miters as if you're putting a box together. So make sure you subscribe to the channel so you get the next video. Hit that bell so you know when they come. And if you like this video, give me a thumbs up and give me a comment down below. And if you got a question about anything on this jig, ask it down below and I will get back to you. All right, guys, thank you. We'll see you next time.